The evolution of the moon is one of these days going to help us right here on Earth. Of course, it's only one area, but I believe it's an important area, and I guess I'm betting a lot on it.
By us taking these first few small steps into space, we have broken the ground, so to speak, of a new frontier, and much like the old frontier of the West or the challenge of the oceans, from accepting these challenges and going forward, man has benefited from those, and history tells me anyway that there's no question about benefiting mankind from space.
I prefer to believe that challenges, things that are stimulating, are the kinds of things that make societies healthy. I think that you cannot retain a healthy society without giving yourself some kind of a challenge to draw the best out of you. I think Apollo or the space program in general is a particularly unique opportunity to do this. This is the first highly technically charged scientific adventure ever to be undertaken in peacetime. There are other large efforts, there are other things like medicine that involve people, but never before have we had a chance to draw together so many people in so many different walks of life on a common endeavor. And Apollo is surely the epitome of that group action for a peaceful endeavor.
Well, I myself feel that it's going to come back, the space program, because as soon as they get into the programs like Skylab and the other orbiting space stations, then it'll have a closer direct application to the people on Earth. They'll see the benefits from it more than they do now when, say, they're going to the moon.
Does the criticism of the space program bother you particularly, the idea that we spend money to send hardware outside the Earth rather than spending this money to solve the problems here on Earth?
Well, it doesn't bother me myself, but the criticism, I think, is directed at the wrong source. The space program just doesn't take that much of the budget, and the benefits you get out of the space program more than, I think, surpass what you would put into it. And like, say, defense, they spend so much on that, and the benefits you get out of that are not nearly as much as the space program, and so much more is put into it.
There are two kinds of changes which are very characteristic of the networks, as a matter of fact. Number one, they keep hotly denying that a word of it is true, and they keep insisting on their impeccable fairness and transcendental objectivity. But in fact, you can practically hear the spines creak these days in the effort to be fair. And I haven't done a study again, obviously, so that I'm speaking in terms of impressions. Impressions, I might add, which are shared. I get mail from all over the country reporting the same feeling, that they are significantly aware of trying to be fair.
we will try to get all the information together from their investigation of it from the time Mr. Lavender disappeared on November the 30th, 1971, and what information and evidence did we have on any suspect will be presented to the district attorney in Tarrant County, and from there probably to the grand jury.
Are you relatively sure that the murder was actually committed in Tarrant County, seeing as how the car was found in Dallas?
We think the murder was committed in Tarrant County. From the information that I have, the body was brought from Tarrant County, was dumped into the Elm Fork of the Trinity River, right below 35E in Denton County. The car was driven to Lower Field and abandoned.
This morning, the Dallas County Commissioner's Court has, in effect, told the federal government, if you don't want us to carry the ball, then we don't want to play in the ball game. It all has to do with that $20 million for the impact program that's going on nationwide. The federal government is trying to fight crime in the streets. Now, here in Dallas, they put the whole thing on the city of Dallas. The county commissioners don't particularly care for that. They say that this particular bill, this study, is going to cost the county money, if nothing else, in the fact that it's going to be costs in probation. It's going to jam the courts. It involves the keeping of prisoners in its county jails. It wants a part in the program.
This court asked our county auditor and one of our criminal district judges to go to Washington and talk to this man, Leonard. And he told them in no uncertain terms that the county would not be a part of the planning or policy making. And it would be done strictly by the mayor and his department in Washington. Now, we talk about free money. The auditor will tell us that this is going to cost the county of Dallas some $500,000 the first year. Well, this court would be derelict if we did not assume some responsibility of this amount of tax money.
This is a copy of the resolution. Now, it doesn't name the impact program, but the judge and the commissioners at the Dallas County Commissioners Court make it clear that's exactly what they're talking about. This is Malcolm Landess reporting for Channel 8 News, the Dallas County Commissioners Court.
American Civil Liberties Union attorney Don Gladden told the counsel of the lawsuit he had filed in U.S. District Court only minutes before appearing in council chambers. Gladden is acting in behalf of 5 citizens who contend the practice of separating property owners and non-property owners' votes in the bond election last week is unconstitutional. Also named as a defendant in the suit is Texas Attorney General Crawford Martin. Gladden said he has requested that a federal 3-judge panel hear the suit. The plaintiffs include 2 property owners and 3 non-property owners, all of whom voted for passage of the library bonds. The council agreed on a motion by Councilman Taylor Gandy, which places the council in favor of issuing the library bonds if it were not for the legal entanglements involved. $6 million in library bonds failed to gain a majority of votes by property owners in the election last Tuesday. Fort Worth has $24 other million in bonds still tied up in litigation. That was in another suit supported by the ACLU back in 1970. It also involved the practice of separate vote counts. Jim Green, Channel 8 News on the Move in Fort Worth.
Ever since last Tuesday night, when the IRS offered to prepare everybody's income tax for free, the Dallas Federal Building's elevator seldom makes it past the 10th floor. Not since 1955 has anyone other than the aged, infirmed, and other special cases of people gotten this complete service. This year, surveys turned up an unhealthy number of fraudulent tax preparers around the nation, which forced the IRS to offer relief to people who would rather pay all their income tax than spend time in a federal prison. The income tax folks didn't mean for their offer to reflect on honest tax preparers, but it's obvious they're taking some business away from them. Since Wednesday morning, this office has helped between 50 and 60,000 people partially or totally prepare their returns. Today, the telephone service was taking some 400 calls an hour, turning away over 500 others with a busy signal. Of course, having an IRS person help prepare your income tax for you doesn't mean they won't go back and audit your return later. Forgetting to tell the preparer about a bit of taxable income could come back to haunt you. 180 North Texas taxpayers played the deadline game again this year. The game is over at midnight tonight. For Channel 8 News and the Move, this is Judi Hanna at the Internal Revenue Service.
Well, it's a pretty good honor, frequently, I've gradually, dreamed about playing among the pros, and seems like, when I qualified, I just couldn't believe it, it's just a great honor to, play among the pros.
How did it come about that you were able to play in the Nelson Classic?
Well, they had qualifying out of DAC Country Club, and there were 75 players. And they had 2 spots, and I was the first group off, and I shot 71, and won on the par 72, and I earned first place with the 71, medalist out there, and 73 was second qualifying.
Okay, so more than likely, I'm sure that you're ready physically. I watch you practice every afternoon and sometime on the weekends, but how are you trying to prepare mentally?
Well, I'm just, I don't know. I think my game is sound enough, where, a lot of people say I'm probably be nervous or something, but I've been through, a lot, tough competition. I think, my nerves are steady enough to, last through the Nelson.
All right, now, as far as I know, you haven't had any formal training except the training you've gotten from your father.
Yeah, that's right. Everything I know about golf has come from my father. I mean, I've never had a lesson from any pro or anybody, anyone else besides my father. He taught me everything I know.
First of all, the committee should determine a recommended new financing system which will have these characteristics. Certainly, it must be constitutionally acceptable. It should relate to equalizing educational experiences among children. It should relate to equalizing per pupil expenditures among local districts, and it should distribute the tax burden fairly.
Sometimes I have my phone on that.
You to sign right here and date it. Get your wife to sign right under you and date it. Okay? Be a refund coming. Wait a minute, I understand what basically what this declaration of estimated taxes is.
Okay, and let me tell you, after you modify this by .075, you go ahead and add those lines in 4, 5, and 6. And then on line 9, it's line 7 less line 8. Yes, sir. You're going to have a balanced due. Wait until you get a notice from the service center in Austin. And then if you feel that you won't be able to pay your balance in,
But I think it's imperative that we take some decisive action today to begin this. And I wanted those of you public members on this committee to know that those of us in the Senate did try manfully 2 weeks ago during the special session to get this entire matter resolved through a concurrent resolution. We just weren't able to do it.
I move approval of the contract.
Second.
Dr. Truelson has moved that the committee execute the contract with Peak, Warwick, and Mitchell for Alternative 2, that the contract then be submitted to the Senate Administration Committee for approval. Is seconded by Dr. Conrad. Is there further discussion of the motion?
Well, I'll say this, that the creek belongs to us. It goes through our yard. It's private property, and the city can't take it away. They haven't proposed to do that, but I think we're going to get some action. The group is just around the corner now, bonding together, and I think there'll be some legal action, or at least an investigation to see what legal steps would be available. The creek is ours, and the waters are going to come, and the floods are going to come, and I think we'll weather them because the area is certainly beautiful. That's the reason why these families came and settled here. That's why they built their homes here. We're being unruly penalized. These floods are not acts of God as much as they are acts of the city of Dallas by allowing more and more streets to be built up north, more driveways, more homes, more shopping center, and there's less water absorption, and that's why the floods have built up. And we think the city should take steps to remedy that rather than try to drive us away.
Number 3, designates the area subject to flooding as floodplain to be acquired for expansion of the park as the owners voluntarily offer them for purchase by the city at appraised market value. In other words, the value of comparable homes in the area.
Mr.
Mayor, continuing with the public hearings, you have the paving of Atlanta Street from Forest Avenue.
We have filed suit against the City of Fort Worth, the members of the council, the city attorney, the city secretary, and the attorney general, seeking to have declared void those provisions which restrict the vote to property owners or to persons who rendered property for taxation, and to direct that the city attorney and the attorney general be required to consider only the aggregate vote total in the bond election as it pertained to the library funds.
That is to say, the Cipriano case will be followed in all revenue bond elections, but it will continue to be necessary to separate the votes of taxpayers from non-taxpayers in combination tax and revenue elections and in general obligation tax bond elections.